All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, October 1st, 2021, and I am your host, Kim Mattina. And I have on my show today Dr. Doug Green. He is a retired teacher, we'll say, partial, but he's been in education since 1969 and he's got a lot of expertise. And I would like to just have him introduce himself to you. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Green.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kim.
Why
Uh,
don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I majored in chemistry and started teaching chemistry in 1971, actually, and then uh, when the school got the first computer in '76, I let the smart kids teach me how to use it, and then invented a course in programming that I taught. And by 1982, I knew enough about computers to be hired as a computer director for Binghamton City Schools, a small urban district in New York State. And I was the central office administrator in charge of administrative computing as well as instructional computing district wide. And over the years, we went from computers that looked like refrigerators and washing machines to microcomputers, and we had the first network. I became an elementary principal in 1993 in an elementary school that was interested in technology. We had our first computer network, and that year, in 1996, I programmed our first website, and then I started my doctoral program in the 90s and studied the impact of having several uh, high functioning internet machines in fifth grade classrooms in a neighboring district. And 2006, my wife was diagnosed with ALS. So a hard decision became an easy one. I took my pension and retired and took care of her for 3 years. And at the time I was taking care of her, I was also serving as the district's, you know, CF or director of information, and which meant that I was uploading files to the state of test scores. And she passed in 2009, and I says, okay, now what? So I started my blog called drdouggreen.com, and every day I post eight resources for busy educators and parents who don't have as much time to read and surf as I do. That's the elevator pitch, even though we're not in an elevator. Uh, I kind of focus on learning strategies and leadership, social media, things like that. I throw in an inspirational quote, and I also put in a piece of like humor, music, or cool stuff. Excuse me. I also summarize books. I don't review them. I summarize them. So if you read my summary, you'll know whether you want to buy the book. And you also can reinforce uh, the key concepts in the book.
You're right over there.
I'm getting there. I'm sorry. I've got over 6,000 followers on Twitter, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome. Yep.
And the other thing I do is I'm the I do independent teacher observations for a neighboring district. Uh, Governor Cuomo, our former governor, felt that principals were giving bad teachers good reviews because they were friends. And so he declared that every teacher should be observed by an administrator not in their building. Okay, so this district didn't have a central office administrators to do that stuff, so they hired me. So every year I get to observe 118 teachers from kindergarten through AP physics, which I can do because of my experience, my background. So I got to see them for the last 5 years, and it was very interesting because last year, obviously, they all started out hybrid, and roughly half the kids would come to school on Monday and Thursday, and the other half came on Tuesday and Friday. So your typical class had physical class had between 4 and 8 kids in it, and a bunch of kids, attending that class via Zoom at the same time. In some cases, in other cases, the Zoom kids were working at home, and the teacher would check in on them every now and then. So it was a very kind of different situation, and so I got to see what was going on.
Yeah, so that leads us to our topic about moving forward past the pandemic. So, I was like, we were talking when we weren't live, we were just chatting, and a lot of teachers had to live stream, prepare lessons for the kids at home and kids in front of them, hybrid cohorts. I was one of the teachers that did tech support for the whole entire year in professional development, and supported parents at home. So it was a crazy year. So, and it's funny that you're on the opposite end of that stick, being like an administrator and observing teachers in this type of environment or platform. So I know, you had said you wanted to talk about moving past the pandemic and what have we learned and what are we doing different. So with that said, with observations, thinking now, are people actually keeping some of those good practices in place from last year, or are they kind of going back to what they're used to?
Yeah, well, I'll find out. But what I did last year when I went into a class and do an observation, at the end of the observation, I would ask, okay, are you doing anything different and innovative and good this year that you think you would like to continue doing that you didn't do before?
Mm-hmm.
Every teacher said yes. Everyone. So I said, okay, well, make sure you do that. And so then I went to the principals and the superintendent and I said, look, they're all telling me that they're doing some pretty cool and interesting stuff that they didn't do before. You need to promote that they keep doing that, number one, and also harvest, find out from the staff, okay, what did everybody do? Tell me. Assemble all that information and then put it back out so that if one teacher did something cool the other teacher didn't see, they can learn from each other. You got to be a little careful about that because you don't want to well, some teachers can just like take off with technology, do incredible stuff, and kind of scare other teachers. Well, she can do that, but I never could, right? And the other thing you got to watch out for is like praising some teachers to high heavens, and the other teachers will sit around thinking, "Oh, what am I, chopped liver?"
Yeah, well,
So
that's all about balance,
right.
right?
So, you can share stuff anonymously, right? And try to share stuff that you think is doable. You know, not the stuff that's just off the charts. And change agents aren't the ones that are the most capable. They're the ones that are the most persuasive. You know,
True.
I had two teachers. I'll just call them Laura and Joyce. Okay, Laura was the genius. She did just incredible stuff. People go and watch her teach and just shake their holy smokes. Joyce was a good teacher. Nothing in particular. But when Joyce got a good idea and ran with it, people would look at her and say, "Yeah, if Joyce can do it, I can do it." So she was the change agent, even though when it came to her skills, they were more in the ordinary realm of things. So as an administrator, you got to kind of keep that in mind. When you're trying to promote innovative things that teachers are doing, you got to figure out, okay, is this really doable for a lot of teachers? And if I promote it, I don't want to you can go tell the person in person how great they are. But you got to be a little bit careful about how you praise teachers in front of other teachers. I mean, that's what I've learned over. I don't know if that was just my experience as a principal, but I think it's kind of human nature.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting too that you said about Joyce and running with it, and then everybody was like, "Oh, well, if she can do it, I can do it," because I think people can relate to her more because
She was the one
could be.
She was the one that got a building-wide computer network going.
Yeah.
She was.
It takes a team. I mean, it does. It takes a whole team of
Yeah.
people to really make something, to make a difference. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about techniques and things to move past the pandemic as far as like moving
Well,
forward?
I'll tell you some other things. First off, every teacher got a big dose of digital literacy.
Hmm.
I mean, Some of the high flyers, maybe didn't pick up as much, but most of the teachers learned a whole ton of stuff. So you now have you kind of got a free year of professional development that you never could have gotten before. What I've been saying, I think education could really use a good pandemic because typically it changes at a glacial pace. I mean, you walk into a typical secondary math class, they're not teaching out of the 20th century, they're teaching out of the 19th century. Those classes haven't changed in hundreds of years. And so all of a sudden, things are changing like crazy. And now we just got to take advantage of that. Look,
And how do you embrace that? Like,
well,
how do you get people on board that aren't so comfortable with tech?
well, they had to be comfortable with it last year because everybody was
Well, they
teaching
were thrown into it last
right,
year. They
but
had no choice. But
but now they know
now
how to swim.
that's true. That's
Let's
true.
talk about the phys ed teachers, right? The high end academic people first, okay?
Hmm.
So your typical phys ed class prior to the pandemic, kids come into class, okay. Then the teacher spends 10, 15 minutes talking and show them, okay, here's what we're going to do today. And then after a third of the class is over, the kids actually start moving. Well, that's not what they were doing last year. They were watching that 10 to 15-minute video at home. When they got into the gym where phys ed is taught, they started moving immediately and moved the whole 45 minutes. There's no reason for that to change. In addition, the kids were also given these, motion trackers, right? Like, they weren't given Apple Watches, but they were given some, gizmo that they could track, and they had to upload their motion stuff to the teachers on a daily basis. Now, I suppose they could tie it to the dog and let the dog run around with it, but if they wanted to game the system, but certainly the students were getting way more in the way of physical activity than they ever got prior to the pandemic.
That's interesting that you say
Yeah.
that. I never thought of it in that way because I saw, like in my building, I saw the phys ed teachers using Flipgrid to talk to them, tell them what to do, show them a video, or like model some of the exercises that they needed to do, and then the kids would record, um, what they needed to get done and send it back in the Flipgrid.
Mhm. Yeah, so anything you did that takes advantage of the fact that the kids aren't sitting there listening to the teacher talk, do more of that. Uh, then some other situations, like how about home economics, right? So I go into the home economic class. There's 4 kids in the room, and hey, guess what? There's 4 stoves. Each kid gets a stove, and the kids at home each get a stove because they have a stove at home. Normally there'd be 24 kids sharing 4 stoves. Here we have 1 kid, 1 stove. They send the ingredients home if the parents wanted them. Some parents said, "Now we got this stuff sitting around." Other kids, yeah, we'll take the ingredients home. So they're cooking at home, and who's eating the meal that night? The family. Uh, Keep that going. And I could go from department to department. It varies. It's funny that I would start with those two because you're not your academic mainstream.
Yeah,
You know the
yeah.
the academic stuff. How about math? There's a train wreck going to happen in this district pretty soon, and here's why. In the elementary school, the the typical class has got a cloud of 4 kids with the teacher, and then 4 kids here, and 4 kids here, and 4 kids here, and each one of those groups are doing something different. So the kids with the teacher are typically doing something called reading first, or what everybody calls it different, but these kids have similar reading capabilities, and they're working with a teacher on something that's appropriate for their current skill level. And then there's a group. It's always a math group. In this district, the math group were kids on iPads using an integrated learning system called iReady. And it's one of these things where, okay, the system knows, hi, welcome aboard. Here's where you left off. Here's your next thing. And the kid just moves along at their own pace. They
Mhm.
get tested every now and then. If they pass, they move on. If they don't, they go, And so it's totally self-paced math. And I was in a first grade class, and there's two kids sitting next to each other. The one kid is basically working on a variation of 2 plus 2. And the child next door, it's got a Cartesian coordinate grid on the screen. Okay. And all the elementary teachers, K4, they're all, yeah, we just do iReady. The kids are all over the place, but who cares? They're learning faster than they ever did because, the program tells them, here's how this kid's doing, here's how this kid's doing. They're almost all ahead of where they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, meanwhile, fifth grade on up, every math teacher teaches, it's like, okay, get out your homework. Boom. Go over the homework. Boom. Hey, here's a new problem. Here's another version of the new problem. And here's the homework for the new problem. See you tomorrow. 19th century stuff. Now, what's going to happen when these kids who have been self-paced, moving at their own thing, run into that stuff? You're going to get some whiny kids saying, hey, I know all this.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get parents talking to the principal. Hey, what's going on? My kid knows all this stuff. It's like, it's time. It's time for those people are going to have to have kind of a come to Jesus moment.
But I think for math, I think the math teachers use digital tools. There are digital tools out there now that can teach, like graphing, like Desmos. There's a lot of Khan Academies out there for math.
If they use it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know in my building, like they used, the math teachers had no choice. They had to go digital to a certain degree, whether that was with, Kami annotated on PDF files, using Desmos. I know some of them use Desmos, and like I said, Khan Academy. But I think a lot of them in my building said they were going to continue to teach using those tools.
Some variation of the flipped
Yeah.
classroom approach. Yeah. Well,
but it's a mindset on who's teaching and presenting that information. That's
I'm sure there's math teachers all over the place doing that, but my hunch is that there's more math teachers that are still doing
absolutely.
Because, they're not using a chalkboard. They're using some expensive, like wall-sized computer on the front for displaying stuff. They're writing on it from the back of the room. And you're right. They've got, graphing calculators and all this stuff, but it's still one pace, right? Yeah. Everybody does the same thing at the same time, the same homework every night.
And why do you think that is? Do you think it's, what is it?
It's easy.
Yeah, but why do
it
you?
requires zero time planning your lessons.
Yeah, but why do you think that teachers do that? Is it because it's a tested subject and there's a lot of weight on those test scores? Like, what do you?
It's the way they were taught. It's the way they were prepared in college. It's, change is hard.
I mean, because I know, like I know a lot of teachers, especially one that I'm thinking of, like she's all digital, everything is digital, and she's a math teacher, and she teaches out of the box, and she wants her kids to be independent and think
they
out of the box,
not
think like 19th century. And I know she tries to promote, like, I don't know if you ever heard of Alice Keeler, but she tries to promote change and awareness, and especially with math, because math teachers are like stuck in this type of teaching method, and I don't know if it's really, you can't really say if it's the teacher or if it's the district, not providing enough training or resources, but it's a combination. And like I said, it's like a team effort. It takes a team of people to make change,
The leadership needs to tell the teachers they expect some differentiation, and if they don't see it, they're going to let them know. But math is a bit like computer programming. Before the show, we were talking about how you give some kids a taste of computer programming and off they go. I mean, they'll just teach themselves. I mean, nobody taught me computer programming. And the same as with math. There aren't that many concepts. get out of the way of the fast kids, and they will take off. When I was a computer director at Central Office, my kids were complaining about the pace of the math classes. So I actually
What, being
lobbied
fast or being slow?
slow, and so I lobbied the high school principal to let my kids take a full course, a full year of math during summer school. That wasn't allowed at the time. And the guy says, okay, here's the textbook. The state exam is on August 18th, and they better get an 85. So I handed them the textbook and said, the exam's on August 18th, get an 85. And they did. And then I started, getting them bus rides out to the local college while they were still in high school, because, using that approach, they'd burn through the high school math courses way before they were seniors. And I had one kid, his freshman year at Harvard, his first math course was something called abstract algebra. Okay. Do you know what that is? Probably not. I didn't at the time. So
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, right. So when it comes to math and computer programming, those are two things where the kids will just, the real top performers will just scream, and you got to get out of their way. The same is true for music. The best musicians in most school districts are better musicians than the music teachers, and that's just how it is. Not saying bad things about math teachers or music teachers, but the real top end folks will outperform their teachers. It's not true for the subject areas where there's like a ton of knowledge you got to wade through before you're a real expert. But in those two subjects, there's not that many concepts you got to learn.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I just find, I don't know. I mean, I think that some of the teachers are going to keep with that same mentality, and then I think teachers are going to work with what they had last year and just teach different. Like I think it's a comfort zone for many of them, and time, like time is always the enemy. We never have enough time in the day, especially during the school day with so much going on. So I think people will resort back to what they're more comfortable with because they can get through it faster.
They discovered a lot of conveniences using, the Google, all the whole fleet of Google stuff for turning in homework and communications, and all that has given them a more efficiency when it comes to a lot of their routine stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody hands out assignments at the beginning of a class anymore. I mean, it's all
no, it's all digital.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, some teachers, they use the document camera and they annotate using pen and paper with the document camera, and then and that's fine too.
And they're letting kids do their assignments in a lot of different ways. The English teachers especially. Now a kid can decide if he wants to make a video or a podcast. You don't have to write a paper. Well, but in order to do a video or a podcast, you got to write a script.
Right.
So you're still writing, and then you're presenting it. You're developing your communication skills. And now that the kids, the kids all have their computers.
Yep.
So they can do that stuff.
Right.
And the kids can usually teach themselves like iMovie, and if they can, it does. You don't need a whole lot of lessons.
Right.
One of the things you got to watch out for is teachers who are teaching courses. They're teaching software. Okay, like in the art department, if they got a course called Photoshop, you got to fix that. When my daughter was in school, my daughter majored in art and went to Pratt University, and she does graphics for the Tamron Hall show on ABC. When she was in high school, the art department didn't have computers, and I was saying, yes, that means that they've got to teach her art.
Right.
And I found like an online Photoshop course. It took her 4 weeks, finished it, and now she's a professional and uses Photoshop every day. Whereas you will find districts that have Photoshop 1 a semester long, followed by Photoshop 2. And the business class, hey, we're going to teach keyboarding one semester, and then next semester we're going to teach Microsoft Word. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I don't know if they do that anymore.
I
don't know.
Some do.
I hope not.
Yes, I've seen it.
That's scary.
Yeah. But you can fix that if you're leadership. Just hey, look,
Yeah.
instead of doing the same lesson every day, tell the kids, okay, here are the lessons. Go through them at your own pace. Let me know
Yeah.
when you're done, and I'll walk around and give you some help if you need it.
Yeah,
That
I
makes the
I
teacher's life
agree.
easier.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you have to give the kids choice and you have to let them be able to learn at their own pace and you have to be able to let some of the control go so that
Yeah.
you can't control everything in your classroom. You have to
Well,
let some of that go and then let the kids become leaders and then they kind of become the group leader within
right.
their
Well,
their little group. I totally agree, but I just think like, it's a mindset that needs to be changed,
well, it's
and
it,
hopefully the pandemic did
yeah,
that.
it,
Hopefully,
it's leadership.
yeah, and it's
Mm.
leadership, it's teamwork. Like I said, it takes a team, but I think hopefully the pandemic introduced that to them and
Well,
then hopefully they can
yeah.
move on. I
Yeah.
just, I don't
And
know.
again, leadership is critical.
Yeah, I mean, I just know what's going on in my building, in
They
my little
they
world,
got the tools. They know the tools.
Yep.
Leadership can encourage the use of the tools. When I was doing my dissertation work, this was fifth grade teachers, right? And so the kids were doing projects essentially, and what that meant was that every kid in the class knew content about the course that the teacher did not know, right? Because they're researching stuff and finding stuff out, and the teachers, all of them realized that this was powerful because the kids know something the teacher doesn't know. Okay, kid, teach it to me. Wow. As long as you realize that that's a powerful thing as opposed to something that scares you and threatens you, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. And
Yeah, I
now
agree.
every teacher has to face that. At
Yeah.
least the folks that teach content.
Yeah, and I think like we're in a better position now because I'm thinking like schools have more tech available to them, so they may be more one to one, with
Just about
Chromebooks or
everybody's one to one
devices or
now.
whatnot. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think like the pandemic made that hurdle at
Yeah.
least, come over the hurdle or even try to make it make the district be more aware that, hey, this kid needs, a hotspot or just not being, having internet accessible at home, whatever. At least now they can make it more equitable
Yeah.
for people so that, people have more access to technology and make education more equitable in that way. So I think a lot of good things happened with the pandemic, with education, and I think we're moving in that direction. I just think, it's going to take time. Like you said, it's just going to take time, because a lot of teachers left the profession last year. A lot of teachers retired.
Well,
A lot of new teachers that left totally,
well, that's always
so
that's always a problem. But I can tell you, some of those
it's
teachers
crazy.
left. They didn't leave because they were scared of COVID. They left because they didn't want to strap on all that technology.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Because I asked,
if they had their time in, they
whenever
left. They
whenever I
retired.
found a teacher that was leaving, I checked into it, and those were the Luddites left. If
Yeah,
you know what.
yeah. I mean, I think it's going to take a couple more years. Like, I think
Well, if they made it
within a
through last year, and they pulled all that technology knowledge in, that's not going to bump them out anymore. It'd be something else that would make them leave.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think you're right. We'll see. I mean, time will tell what's going to happen, but I know in my building it's we're one to one. Yeah, we're fortunate we have technology available in they have like the box light panels in most of the classrooms. The teachers are using them with the kids. It's interactive.
Hmm.
I mean, we're moving in the right direction, which is good,
Yep.
but I still think it's going to take a couple more years to really
Well, it should be
get through it.
continuous learning, folks.
Continuous learning,
There's no
exactly.
there that you're going to get to.
But it's always continuous learning,
Yes.
isn't it?
So,
It's
so
always like
we,
if you're stagnant, if
we made
you're
a big
stagnant, who wants to be a student in your
right.
class?
We made a big jump, and now we're just going to keep on going.
Yep.
What I was telling the teachers when I left the class, after I asked them about what they're doing, all that, I said, if you feel stressed, you're not showing it, and that is just so vital. And keep on making lemonade. And they all looked at me and said, "Yeah." And that, I think that's the kind of message leadership has to send. You guys are doing amazing stuff. Keep on doing it.
Yeah. And I just say, just take one day at a time, do the best you can, and
Yeah, and
that's it.
tell the media to stop trashing teachers just for something to do. Because
Oh,
one
that's
thing
a whole
the left wing and right wing media agree on is the teachers are crappy. Please. Ugh.
let's
Ugh.
not even go there.
Oh, I know. It's so untrue.
I know. I mean,
Teachers are amazing.
it's crazy. Everybody just stepped up to the plate last year and
Yeah.
did whatever we needed to do. And, it's,
I'll tell you, I made
it
less
wasn't,
money
it wasn't easy. That's for sure.
during my career. I made less money than any member of my college fraternity because they all got these fancy, corporate jobs. But guess who's got the best pension?
Right. Well,
Me.
well, we don't do it for the money though, right?
No, I did it for the cool pension.
You did it for the pension. Well, you can say that now. I still have years to go, and so
Keep ticking them off.
yeah, just keep
I
counting
don't know
down.
what the score is in New Jersey, but every year you worked, it was another 2% of your final salary that you got for doing nothing.
Well, I don't know. I'm not there yet, so
But
I,
just keep going.
I just keep putting my time in.
Yeah, and I told you the arc of my career. I mean, I went from punching cards to talking to you on my laptop and running a
Yeah,
blog, and just doing amazing stuff.
yeah,
And it's only going to get more amazing. I just
yeah.
ordered my new iPhone. It's like I can hardly wait.
Yep. Nope. It's all good. Especially with with everything changing so fast, you got to try to keep up with it. It's hard, but so all you can do is the best you can.
Yeah,
That's
well, here the motto is, a lot of people think I don't have time to do it right, but I have time to do it over. Because if you're going to do something different, the first time is going to take you longer.
hmm
Right? If for example, suppose, I read the first spreadsheet back in 1979. There's something called VisiCalc. It came out before Excel. And I said, holy smokes, this is amazing. So immediately I started doing my grades on it. Now, did it take me longer to do my grades the first time when I used that spreadsheet? Yeah. But did I ever calculate an average manually again? No.
No.
Right. So, take the time to do it differently, better, more efficiently, and then you'll save that time. It's an investment.
Well, that's what I tell people too. Like when I was a tech coach, I was an integration tech coach for many years, and that's what I've always said. Like invest the time up front because you're going to get that's going to be your reward at the end. Like you'll have that time back. You just have to invest up front and learn in it and trying to make a new workflow or whatnot. But you always get that time back in the end,
Yeah. And every
So,
now and then you'll run into a student or like a former parent, and they'll tell you how amazing you were and how you made a difference in their
yeah,
lives.
yeah. You just
can't-
never hear that,
You can't pay for that.
No. So
I'm
it's
just
all.
agreeing you were the best principal. 25% of my kids were refugees. I get very good at middle Eastern language accents.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy, but yeah, I don't know. Well, it was great talking to you, Dr. Green.
Same
I
here.
really enjoyed your conversation and your thoughts about choice and having kids move on at their own self pace and teachers changing their ways of methods of teaching and presenting information. It was really a nice insight on an administrative side of
Yeah.
things, especially during observations during the pandemic as well. So this was a great conversation. I'm really happy to had you on tonight. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I'm thrilled there's someone like you in the business. Hang in
What's
there.
that?
I'm thrilled there's someone like you in the business. keep up the good work.
I'm trying. With that, let me just share my screen. You stay on, and I'm going to wrap up the show. Let's see here. All right. So if you want to visit my website, you can go to thesweettalk.com. And here we go. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check me out on Twitter. Join my Facebook group. You can also subscribe to the Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and subscribe to my newsletter. The latest episode will be here on the homepage. And you can check out my Google Teaching with Google Jamboard book that I wrote with Alice Keeler. It has a lot of great ideas and templates that you can use in all classrooms. And I'd like to say thanks to all of my sponsors, Helperbird, Alice Keeler, Moat, Cami, StreamYard, Text Help, Slides Mania, and Screencastify. Without you, I couldn't do this show. If anybody would like to be a guest on my show, you can fill out the guest inquiry form as well. And I will get back to you as soon as I can. And with that being said, that's it. So again, thank you, Dr. Green, for being on. I really appreciate it.
That was fun.
Yeah. So until next time, I will see everyone next week. Have a great day or evening. Bye.
Bye.